Everyone, as you are trickling in here to the room. I'm so happy that you're here. I am Hunter. I am one of the hosts and moderators with Power to Fly. And today we have a chat and learn that we're going to jump into where you can participate. So stay tuned for that. First, a little bit of housekeeping. As I just mentioned, this is something we would love for you to be a part of. So you can turn your cameras off and you will pop up here on the live recording if you do come off mute. This is being recorded and we can send you the link after the chat and learn with the emails that you signed up with. If you have any questions that come up or comments or thoughts, you can drop that into the chat. Or you can message me privately. It says Sanmaya there, but you can actually message me, Hunter. If you go into the chat box, you can message me if you want to ask a question anonymously, or if something's come up or a concern, feel free to message me privately that way. And you can keep up with social media, with us on social media. There we go, words. Power to Fly is on all the things, and feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can go back and watch replays of great talks like this, as well as previous summits and so much more. So without further ado, my friends, we have a fantastic speaker today. Welcoming back Diana Bernal O'Leary is a career coach that hosts the Careers of Advice podcast Job Talk Weekly, where she educates, motivates, and inspires people to find job fulfillment. Diana started her corporate career as a recruiter in financial services, working in Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles. She's worked closely with executive search firms and hiring managers to build high-performance teams. Now, today, Diana advises candidates on their career aspirations, helping them identify their best job fit, develop and implement action plans, and find job fulfillment. So hopefully she will help you a bit with that today. So, thumbs up from Diana. So some main takeaways that we hope to cover today is identify your best job fit that uses your top skills while feeding your interests. I think we all want that. Determine what you need from your next job and company. Use a proactive approach in your job search, and set up the right support system and accountability to reach your goals. Now, I know I need, as working from home, I need accountability and deadlines, whether I make them or other people make them, or check-ins with people to be like, going, So these are all really valuable things that we're going to chat with. So Diana, please give Diana a nice warm welcome, a digital round of applause, if you will. And Diana, so great to have you here today. How are you?
Thank you, Hunter. I'm doing great out here in sunny California, where the heat wave has finally broken. So if you are on the West Coast, good morning to you. If you're on the East Coast, I appreciate you taking time from your lunch hour to visit with us today. And wherever you are in the world, I think it's important for us to take time and take care of ourselves and take care of our career development, which is what you're doing today. So good for you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And so, Diana, before we jump in, I hear you have a question you'd like to ask everyone.
Yes. I want to get everyone started today thinking about job fulfillment and what that really means for you, because for everyone, it's different, right? So I want you to think of a number, and I want you to think, how long has it been since I've really had job fulfillment? Has it been 1 year? Has it been 5 years? Has it been never? I mean, try and think how many years ago it's been since you had that great job where you were firing on all cylinders and you really loved what you did, because we want to get you thinking about what's possible for you. And at any point in our career, we've had job fulfillment more or less. So give us a number as to how many years it's been since you've had that. And if you're in a place right now where you have job fulfillment, good for you. You can enter 0 or 1 because it's always good to stay on top of your career and see where you're going to get going next. So let's see, what numbers are we seeing? I see 5. Okay.
Great.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
5, 15, 6.
Okay, 16. Wow. And even if, the great thing about the conversation that we're going to have today is that it can apply to you no matter where you are in your career. I mean, if you're relatively new to the business world and you're just out of college, this is going to be a framework that I hope you will keep with you throughout your career. And if you're over 50 and you're saying, okay, I've got 10 years, 12 years before I retire, well, then let's make the most out of those years. Let's make them really wonderful years in the workplace, not just for you, but the people who can learn from you. Because I often find that once you're operating on all cylinders and you're doing work that you're really good at and that you're enjoying, other people are going to benefit from that. And that in of itself can also be really rewarding. And I know the younger people out there will appreciate all the expertise that you have. So what other numbers did you see, Hunter?
I'm also seeing, well, only like 2% of the time someone's giving us a percentage here.
Okay. And that's, yeah. All right. So we
Yeah.
want to get that back up. We want to get that back up. And it's interesting because Gallup does a poll all the time about people who are engaged at work. And, they claim success that, we have 30 or 32% of today's employed are highly engaged in their work. And I'm like, well, what about the rest of them? Like, you don't want mediocrity, you don't want these safety jobs, you want more than that. And I think we all deserve more than that. And so that's what we're going to try and boost those numbers.
Yeah. And so for finding job fulfillment, shall we pull up, we have a great supply here of information. Do we want to talk a little bit about that Venn diagram that might be of helpful to other people?
Yeah, so I'll explain my career trajectory and why I'm here today, and that'll give you a second to bring up the PDF. That is something that the participants can take with them, because I was really lucky. In my young 20s, I found career fulfillment, but I did it through an exploration process. Something like what we have today. I went to a weekend workshop, I attended some meetings every other week, and I found that I was able to figure out my skills and where I wanted to apply them. Because in the beginning I was working and I wanted something else, but I didn't know what that was. And so it's through this process, very similar to what we're going through today, that I was able to say, oh, here's when I am at my best self. And here are then the types of jobs and companies where I can apply that. So if you're in your 20s, hopefully this is something that you can take with you forever. And so what you'll see on this PDF, the Venn diagram, love it, thank you, is that sweet spot of the three things that we like to talk about between skills, interests, and market. And so today you're going to hear me talk on and off about the SIMPLE method, which is the acronym that we use because we want job search to be simple, and it can be if you're doing the right things. I'll do just a quick mention that there's a workshop on October 1st that is virtual. It's on a Saturday, where we give people some more personalized attention, whether you're doing a career pivot or you know what you want, but you're a little stuck getting there. For people, that's called the SIMPLE method. And that's all on the website at jobtalkweekly.com. So in this, we're going to give you sort of the Cliff Notes version of some of the things that we talk about with the SIMPLE method, but it's really trying to find that sweet spot between your skills, the best skills, your interests, and your market.
I love that. And if those are already coming to you, listeners, feel free to participate in the chat, and Diana and I can riff off of that. And it might spur some questions that may come to mind for you. Excuse me. And if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat at any point. What I'm going to do, so you all know, is I have pre-submitted questions that a bunch of you sent in advance to me. And so I'm going to be pulling from those. And if you have any new ones that are coming up, feel free to add them into the chat and we will pepper them in as best we can. So with that, I'd love to jump in. And Diana, I have to say, I grew up in California and I live in New York, and I just get so warm when I hear about the warm sunshine and the heat wave breaking and all that. And I was like, oh, nostalgia.
Yes, it's good. It's good today. Last 2 weeks ago, it was over 100, but we're doing all right today.
Oh my goodness. Yes. I feel you in New York. We get that too here but I like to go, oh, the humidity. That's a
nice
yeah,
one. I see you there.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to be talking about job fulfillment, right? And we have a bunch of questions that came in about that in advance. And sorry, my doc just flew away.
Okay,
And
you know what, Hunter? Actually,
yeah,
I'm going to let you find the doc, and I'm going to
yeah,
mention one
please.
thing
Oh,
about
please.
job fulfillment that I think is really important for a lot of folks.
Mm,
When we talk about our dream job and job fulfillment, we're looking for something that provides meaning and purpose and that we really love and that we enjoy doing every day. There's also a very practical reality for some people that they have to take a job because of their commute, because they need to be available for other family members, or their benefits or what have you. And I just want to say that that's okay too. I have a lot of friends who are artists and musicians, and they have these day jobs that are fine for them, but
mm,
it's because they let them do other things. And
mm,
that's where the magic happens. And I think about my former administrative assistant, who is an artist, and she had this good job and she would work basically 9 to 5, a little bit of overtime here and there, but it gave her the money and the benefits and the peace of mind so that she could then go home to her studio where the real magic happened. So I think it's okay for job fulfillment to come in and out of our lives in different ways. And so if you're at that place where you're in a real practical approach to fulfillment, you can still answer these questions with that in mind and give yourself the permission to be in a different place.
absolutely. I have so much identification with that. Like, I am an artist, I'm a performer, I'm a photographer. And then, a friend of mine here works at Power to Fly, and they're like, I have a job here that might fit and align with you. And it's been such a game changer. I can totally speak to, like, oh yeah, I love talking to people. And then I can do my other stuff, especially with this time of like, oh, I'm remotely doing these things, and then I can go do this stuff. So they do exist out there. I can happily speak to that.
Yeah, and the key though is to make sure if you take a job that's sort of for a moment, that you remind yourself to check in either once a year
Mhm.
or 2 years, because maybe you'll be here, Hunter, 20 years from now, and that will be great for you and that will be great for all of us at Power to Fly. But maybe that's not where you're going to be headed 10 or 20 years down the road. So it's important to always check in with yourself.
Oh, that's such good advice. So, first question that someone asks in advance was, when looking for a job, how can we know that it will feed our interests and use our top skills?
Well, thank you for whoever read our minds and provided that question, because that's really serving us up here for when we talk about the simple approach, the simple method. It's an acronym, and the first 3 letters are SIM. And so what you're looking for is that perfect combination of skills, interests, and market. And you want to apply the skills that you do really well and that you want to do really well. Because if you are operating, again, you're full speed, you're really doing well at your job, you will build a reputation. And other people in the company will see how effective you are. And then when those people spread out to other companies, you could start to be called because you are indeed using your best skills. That's why it's really important to know where you thrive, to know the things that you're good at and that you want to keep doing. And then if you're fortunate enough to then overlay where your interests are. And I love this example because a friend of mine has a son who went to a liberal arts college. He got his degree in economics. And so he was a data cruncher, right? And he did that for a few years. But then sure enough, he ended up being the Moneyball guy for a baseball team. And if those of you who love Michael Lewis and remember that movie with Brad Pitt or read the book, that's the application of art and science into sports. And so that's a great example of a kid who was applying his data crunching skill set in an interest that he loved, which was baseball. And the beauty of it is if you're doing the skills that you do well and that you enjoy, you're not selling yourself. It's just you become really good at what you do, and other people will see that. And then you'll be excited at the office because you have that good match of skills and interests.
Oh, I love that. Oh, it's what a fun tidbit that person.
Yeah, yeah. And it's being at the right place that can also get
Mhm.
you through the hard days. And interest can be anything. I mean, it could be the actual industry like sports or fashion, but it also can be causes. Out here in California, we have a lot of organizations that support the environment, right? And that could even be Patagonia today, if you look at what they just did, right? So there's tons of companies and organizations that are nonprofits, that feed into the things that you love. So if you are working for one of these causes and you have a deadline, there's a campaign going on, you might be working late, but you're so excited about the outcome, about the mission, that it's okay to work late. It's okay to put in those hours because you're helping, you're serving other people.
And it probably, I imagine, helps prevent burnout.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, burnout is real. I mean, that's today's episode on Job Talk Weekly. The podcast is about quiet quitting because I had to, because everyone was talking about quiet quitting. And a lot of that is indeed the burnout. So if you're at the right place, that can at least prevent some of that burnout. Now, some people who are really passionate about a mission can burn themselves out because they're so dedicated and they work those long hours because they get so invested in it. So I think for anyone, you've got to do your own check about burnout and how to pace yourself so that way you're not in that position.
I love that's the second time you've also mentioned in a different format now, check-ins with ourselves.
Yeah, that's what, I'm just going to do like my PSA for career health. We talk about financial health. We have financial advisors, we have apps, we check in on our retirement funds and our savings all the time. And we have articles and magazines dedicated to it. And the same thing with our physical health. We go to the gym, hopefully sometimes, right? And we do yoga and we do all these other things to take care of our physical health, our financial health, but we also need to be thinking about our career health as a long-term trajectory. The people that you're meeting today, maybe they're not helping you tomorrow, but maybe they're helping you 5 years from now. Hunter and I are now connected. We're going to be professional colleagues, and every once in a while we're going to check in. And one day we might be helping each other. But I just think it's so important for us to be thinking about our careers, about our job fulfillment before you get to that place of burnout. That way you can prevent the burnout. That way you can prevent the miserable days at work.
Absolutely. And I love too that long-term goal about career health. I don't know that I've heard it phrased that way. I think that's really beautiful. And it makes me think of, you're talking about these long-term connections, whether they're a quick one, you and I are doing an hour now, but who knows where that could be in a couple of years, From my own experience, I started out in working as an artist, and guess what? I'm not the only person that has taken on different jobs, right? So you never know where people are going to end up. And I had friends that I worked with and one thing, and then years later we reconnected because they're like, oh, I wonder if he's doing that. And then, oh, you would be a good fit. And then there you are at your next job.
Yes, and that'll lead a lot into the networking conversation. I think one of the questions that came in overnight for today's conversation was about networking. And if you take the long view, that'll be so much more helpful. I think a lot of people think of networking as finding a job, and that is a part of it, but it's also learning, it's building those connections. That way, when you do need some help in a certain area, or you want to find someone who works at Chase Bank or what have you, then maybe it was someone that you met through a Power to Fly workshop, through a Job Talk weekly workshop.
Yeah, I think the exact question was, is networking an important key in our job search? And I think the short answer is yes.
Yes. And the career consultants will always start you there with the networking. And it's true. I mean, consistently since I've been in human resources, the data is around 70 to 80%. 4 out of 5 jobs comes through networking, but it comes over time. And today we're in a much more digital age. So there are people finding jobs on LinkedIn, on Indeed, and that's great. But it's the network that can help you in so many ways, because yes, you might be getting job leads. You also want to learn about those companies. There's information on Glassdoor, there's information online, but you really want to get a sense for what it's like to work there. And I'll give you an example, because I had a friend who, this many years ago, he got a job at Google. And we were like, wow, Greg's working at Google. How cool is that? And, after a while, he said, yeah, it's a cool place for the engineers. They're a very data heavy company. And at the time, they were investing all the lunches, the swags, all the hoopla into the engineers. And so he was in a different administrative role. So he didn't feel the same love that you hear about working for some of those companies. Now, that was a long time ago, and I bet you they have since paved that out. But it's only through talking to other people that you start to figure out, would this company be a good fit for me? Would this career pivot be a good fit for me? So Hunter, again, let's use you as an example. It was talking through friends at Power to Fly that brought you in. And it wasn't just, hey, we have this opportunity, we need some support, you have these great skills, let's put them together. But you needed to know if this was going to be the right environment for you. And you can only find that out through your network of people.
Absolutely. And they knew me from different things, but it's because of, and we describe it at Power to Fly and in industries like soft skills, that they were like, it was my resume of soft skills that got me this job. Like it wasn't a hard, it's a hard skill, but you know, at the end of the day, it's really what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, we all rely on that term soft skills. I wish there was a better one for it. Sometimes I call it essential skills because I think the communication, the leadership is so important, but that is what sets you apart. Like if I had two great accountants and they were both tech savvy and they both were great with numbers, I'm going to take the one with the better communication skills. So don't underestimate when you look at your skills, when you look at those jobs 5 or 16 years ago, or those 2% of jobs that someone said where you were fulfilled and you were, you know, doing great and you felt like you were thriving. Don't underestimate the power of those soft skills, because finding good managers who know how to mentor people, something like that, is really key. And the assumption that everyone knows how to communicate, not there.
Absolutely. And we're getting some great comments in the chat. Speaking of communication, Mary says, I am renaming it to Ultimate Success Skills, which I
love it. Thank you. Thank you.
Good. And we got a comment from T that says, preach, Diana. I love her. I know. I've never heard of career health. Yes.
I'm so glad. Good. Good. I feel a t-shirt coming on, a t-shirt and a bumper sticker coming soon.
Yes. Career health. Go to your doctor, Diana O, for your career health checkup.
Oh, I feel some marketing coming on. Okay, I might have to write that. There are a lot of career doctors out there, though. Yeah, that's true. Okay, terrific.
Oh,
hey, go ahead.
Oh, please. No, go ahead.
I think it was T or someone who talked about introverts. And I have a real soft spot in my heart because I am a lifelong extrovert. I am at the extreme of E, but my daughter, my firstborn, is an introvert. I mean, on the Myers-Briggs, she's like that really unique, I think she's INFJ. Or whatever it is. So I've done a lot of reading and research on how to help make her successful, because I hate to say it, but people like Jack Welch have always promoted this as an extrovert's world, that the extroverts win. And there are certain industries where those people do get ahead because they are seen easily, but it's the introverts who really are the thinkers in the room. They are observing things that we, the extroverts, are going too fast, that we're not seeing. So know your value as an introvert and just be fortunate enough perhaps to work for someone who recognizes that, because I once had a team where there was about 5 of us. All of my team were introverts. Okay, now maybe it happened by coincidence, maybe it was by design, but you just kind of have to know how to dance sort of in and out and recharge on your own. And, you know, working for a big, boisterous company might not be the right place for you. Working for a sports team might not be the place for you. Working in education might be a good place for you. Working at a university or a place where there's other people who have that same approach to thinking might be a way. And use the technology in your favor. You know, the computer is an introvert's friend right now. So the days of those networking events where we'd go to a hotel lobby, right, with our business cards and shake hands and meet people, it's really not happening. I actually don't even want to shake hands with people anymore because of the flu or any other virus. But you can send someone an email and say, hey, Hunter suggested I talk to you. Do you have a few minutes? So you can prepare yourself in advance and you don't have to be face-to-face with that person quite yet. There's a lot of great tips out there for introverts in their career search and what jobs are good for them.
I love that. I'm also going to drop in, I had a great chat with this person, Jacqueline Shawless. We did, I mentioned her yesterday too. I'm just so on the Jacqueline buzz right now because her whole thing is she's a coach, an introvert who coaches other introverts. And it's a really awesome technique. You can check her out in our conversation at Power to Fly here. If you want to go to our YouTube page, You can find it there, like and subscribe. And then also you can Google her. That's her webpage. I highly recommend her for introverts. You are welcome, T. My pleasure. Here's a great question that we got earlier. Is there a way to make our current job feed our interests? So we've been talking about pivoting, changing, networking for future ones. What if actually you're like, this job is stable, it pays well, it's okay, but could be better. Like what's that gray zone?
Yeah, and I love that question because I do recommend that people start at ground zero first. Start where you are, start that company, start at that job. And it still takes that assessment. Like, what are the skills that I love to do and that I do really well? Okay. And so maybe you were hired to do one thing, but you got promoted or your team grew and you've gotten away from some of the core work you do. That happens a lot with anyone who's either in a sales position or maybe in a direct one-on-one role who gets promoted to manage other people, but they're spending their time managing. They're not spending their time doing the thing that they love to do. So I would sit down and assess, okay, where are the times that I have really thrived at work? Where could I do that in my current job? And who can help me get there? So is it your current manager that you can start talking about, when I was first hired, I was working in this department and there's some things I really miss about that. And I would love to see if there's a way that I could, bring that back in to my work. And whenever you're talking to your current employer, it's important to emphasize that you want to stay, that you want to contribute, and you want to continue to grow in your position. You don't want to just bail on your current manager to go to another department, but you say, I really love it. I love the things I'm doing, but here are some things that I really miss. And I'd like to see if there's a way to add that back.
I love that. Makes me think of, I'm a big proponent of outside help, like therapy and self-care and all that stuff. And one of my therapists from the past who I love used to say, strike while the iron is cold.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, to let our feelings kind of temper and then make the moves, because I think those feelings, like you have mentioned a few times, these are check-ins that are really important to kind of gauge our temperature. But if we're feeling really hot, temperature wise on the gauge, it might be maybe not the best decision in the long term. It's okay, let me calm down. Let me see, let me give it another week, another month. And it's not laziness. It's actually can be another form of self-care to be what do I really feel about this?
Yeah. And that's why I think this type of framework can apply to anyone. Maybe you are doing well in your current company, but you want to get out ahead of potential burnout. You want to get out ahead of that situation. So it's the constant assessment of knowing what you do well, where your interests are, and what you need in your life right now. I use commute as an example because, when I was in my 20s, it didn't matter that I had an hour commute. As I got older, as I had kids, I needed to shrink that commute, and any job that I took had to help me do that.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to do a little time check here, friends. We are right at the half-hour mark. So if you want to ask your questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. As you can see, Diane and I are free flowing. We're bouncing around, kicking around ideas. So we'd love these comments that you are dropping in. So please keep them coming. Tiffany mentioned earlier, to circle back around on the introverted conversation. They said, I believe I have become an introverted now over time. And I thank you for sharing that, Tiffany, because I also identify with that. And I think, again, you're speaking to a check-in, right? Where am I at right now? Where I was in my, for me, in my 20s is not where I'm in my 30s and now coming up on my 40s. I like staying at home with my dog, I don't need to go to everything anymore.
Right. Those things definitely come and go. I think that's wise.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Tiffany. And Jackie mentioned, definitely find myself approaching burnout. So I love the idea of self-assessment and career health. And Tiffany, or T says, here, I know, right? I know, that's right. Yeah. So thank you all for your participation in this. Okay, moving down the list here. What are the things that should be important when looking for our next job or company? So we were talking about these check-ins of where we are here in our current situation. So now, okay, we're ready to start planning to make a move. And so what are those things? I have a feel it might involve the sim in the simple part.
Yeah, it's funny because 5 years ago when I started these conversations, market meant geography, right? And today that could be very, very different. I'll say a few things though. What I want people to do is figure out these deal breakers now before you start searching, because otherwise you might end up negotiating with yourself down the road. So figure out the elements that are really important to you. Okay, obviously pay is one of them. Figure out what's the bare minimum that you need, because if you get an offer that comes in slightly underneath it, you'll be struggling later. But if you say, no, I set my mark, I'm worth 100,000, I need to make 100,000. If an offer comes in later at 80, you know that that's not the right job for you. So list out all these other things. Okay, so is it pay? Is it benefits? When it comes to flexibility, what does that mean? Because flexibility for someone might mean the ability to come and go, whereas for another person, they want to be able to do their job within whatever 24-hour span they have. So you have to get real on what flexibility means to you and this hybrid. You want to be remote. What does that all mean? Because what could happen is, again, you get this offer and they said the job was flexible. Oh, but there's a 4 o'clock check-in every Thursday or something like that. We actually, if anyone knows Lauren Haggerty from Power to Fly, she was a guest last year on the podcast and she was remote before it was a thing, right? So she gave us some really great tips on how to have this conversation during the interview process to find out more about what remote looks like at those companies and how to figure that out. So list out your must-haves versus your kind of nice to haves, but then stick to those must-haves, because if you, again, negotiate with yourself, you're like, well, I wanted 100, but they offered 80 and I got Fridays off, you might not be happy a year or two down the road. And so those are the things that with this real proactive approach, hopefully you can be preventing down the road.
Those are all great tips. And I'm so glad that you got to speak to Lauren Haggerty because she is so awesome. If you aren't familiar with Lauren yet, please do Google her name and go to all the talks with her on Power to Fly and find the chat with Diana. I'm sure it's amazing. I'm going to Google it. What a beam of light, that human.
Yeah. And again, she was out ahead of the game and she is proof that you can be a manager, you can get promoted, you can manage a team all from your home office.
Yeah, it's so awesome. So we're getting some great questions coming in live right now. And so to circle back around to when we were talking about soft skills, inherent skills, I think someone called them ultimate success skills, which I love. How do we identify these things? I realize I rarely have done jobs based on inherent skills or perhaps job searches.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, start with your own quiet time. List out the things that you think you're good at. Is it, communicating one-on-one? Is it public speaking? Is it mentoring other people? But look at your performance reviews. Hopefully your boss has been in these conversations with you over the past few years, but even if you have to go back 5 or 10 years, what were the things that other people noticed about you? Because sometimes we take those things for granted, like the fact that I can be a public speaker or that I can organize events. Yeah, that just comes to me naturally. No. People pay for that. Not everyone wants to do the things that come naturally to you. So it's a matter of real self-reflection, but then also go into your conversations with past managers. Maybe you can go back to your old boss if you have that relationship, which, by the way, the networking includes people that you used to work with, especially former bosses who can always speak to your success and are terrific references for years to come. But just say, I'm doing some planning and I just, these are the things that I thought I did well, but what am I missing? What else did you see? And start there.
I love that. Yeah. And again, that's that long-term career health that you're talking about, right?
Yeah. And, I keep copies of my performance review at home. I used to do that. There's a file back there somewhere, but it is also kind of a boost. I keep a brag folder in my email inbox. And that's something that I also encourage people to do, because when it's time to do your performance review, for example, how are you supposed to remember for your self-review the things that you were really excited about over the last 12 months? But if you keep a brag folder and you put in compliments that you received for other people, from other people, you put in the big accomplishments that you've made, then that can also help you be like, oh, someone recognized me for this. This is what they said about me. And so that will give you hints of how other people see you.
I love that. Yeah, that's such a good tip because I think, inherently a lot of us, including myself, have what is called a negativity bias. And it's easy to remember all of the things that I didn't accomplish or didn't do well. And it's so, so important to flip it and to have
Yeah.
something like a brag folder where you're like, oh, whether it's the past 12 months or maybe just the past 12 hours, like what did I do today that was a success?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
really, it's important for us, I think.
definitely. That's a good one.
Yeah. And a way I like to do it too is I'm on a Mac, but if you do Command Shift R, that screenshots your screen. So you can screenshot things when like, oh, like someone said, maybe I don't save every email, but like you could screenshot it, drop it in your brag folder, when you get a little review or something like that. It's one way.
You could also take a screenshot of your phone because so
Yep.
much of us work on Slack or text messages. I have done that. I've taken a
Yeah.
screenshot when someone said, oh, they were so thrilled with you. They love you. And I just shot that and kept
There
it.
you go. There you go. Same thing.
We all need that boost every once in a while, by the way.
Yes, it's what is called a, healthy support to the ego, because the ego
Yes.
can run rampant, but there is a healthy dose of like confidence.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
the balance, right?
definitely.
Okay, let's see. Moving right along. We got about 20 minutes left. Someone asked, what should we take in mind when setting up the right support system? So I think this could we've talked a little bit about this with check-ins, but I love this. The framing of this question is like setting up the support system. So how do we like choose who is a part of that and how that works? Because sometimes I might be like, oh, I really value someone's opinion, but sometimes it's really harsh, So like we want to set up something that's a healthy support system, right?
Oh, yeah. I could actually talk about this for another hour because the right support system helps you move forward, and the wrong support system could derail you. And let me give you some examples. So if you're not ready to talk about your job search, you want something different, but you're not sure what, and you make a comment to your sister. I'm just going to pick on sisters right now. I don't have one, but I have two daughters, so I watch them. If you say something to your sister like, gosh, I'm thinking of leaving and finding a new job, and the sister says, well, why would you? You have such great benefits and such great pay. Why would you leave? If you haven't done a little bit of this work, then you don't have that answer. And you're like, yeah, why would I leave? And so then you get stuck, and your entire process could be stuck for another 3 months or
Mhm.
more. So what you want to do is you want to start some of this work first before you talk to anyone. Make it your own process. So the introverts, I see you and hear you right now. So this will be good for you because it's just you and your mind and your thoughts. So before all these ideas are fully baked, you want to kind of get a sense for, okay, here's what I'm missing. Here's what I want to go toward. And then you want a balance. Take out the outliers. If you've got that one extremely critical family member, put them to the side. And then you also have that extremely gushing, like my husband is such a cheerleader. I don't know that I'm ever going to get critique or feedback from him, so I'm going to put him to the side. But it's the people in the middle who will help you talk through these processes and who will either affirm or poke some questions at it. So you have to decide who those people are in your family and your life and how you're going to use them. Certainly when you get that great new job, you want to call your sister. I'm going to tell my husband like, hey, I just booked this new deal and I'm all excited about it. They definitely can help you celebrate, but you want to balance. You want some people who are going to have some healthy conversations with you, but try and find the people in the middle before the people in the extremes get pulled in. And they, the critics, they could weigh you down.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely understand that. It's easy. And I think it's so important. Again, I'm just going to keep highlighting this because it's like doing the work first, that's a check-in, right? Like we need to check in with ourselves and get some familiarity with what our, what that sim is for us. What are those, what are those dreams and what are those interests that we have, so that we can, when we're ready for feedback and bouncing off ideas, then, because for me, it's easy for me to get either like, I like you, you're like, I leave, and me, I can get defensive. I'm like on the other side. I'm like, but it's because if I'm unsure, so, but if I'm already like, okay, I think I'm going towards this way, then I'm more open to having a conversation with someone, as opposed to some of my, character reflexes, as I like to call them, come out.
Yeah. And this is where your coworkers can be so valuable. I don't recommend sharing with a current coworker that you're thinking of leaving, because that could backfire. I actually got that question. It was a good one. The last time we did a seminar, like, oh, I want to tell my fellow coworker, my office mate, that I'm thinking of looking. And it's like, that could backfire, because what if you end up staying and now you've got this one person who thinks that you could leave any minute? What if either of you get promoted and she gets promoted, and then she, in the back of her mind, thinks, well, wait a minute, last year Diana said she was going to leave. How do I assign her to this great new client deal if I'm not sure where she is? So I would look to people that you used to work with, again, because they have a very realistic sense of who you are in the workplace, and they can be references for you. That's why I always suggest staying in touch with your former bosses is always a nice thing. They'll appreciate hearing from you. Thank them if they were good mentors. Thank them if they helped, lead you up that corporate ladder. But they can be part of that support crew too.
I love that. And I feel like that segues perfectly into this other question, which is, what is the role of accountability in reaching our goals? So now that we have some support systems, and maybe we're sharing with someone like, oh, someone I really trust, a mentor, former boss, I'm looking for a new job right now, or I'm thinking about looking for a new job. What's this accountability? Like, oh, a couple months went by, I didn't do anything, or maybe there has been movement.
Yeah, that's where I think sometimes the introverts have a leg up on us extroverts. It depends as a person who can set a time frame for yourself, especially if you are currently employed and trying to find something new. That can be so hard to find the time and find the right time when you have energy and you have a good mental space to look for another job. But let's say you set aside Tuesday and Thursday mornings, you're going to do an hour every Tuesday, Thursday. If you are that person that can put that into your calendar, sit at your desk with your coffee and do your work, then amen to you, because you've got that internal discipline to stick with it. And then there are those of us who need some outside accountability to get us going. And one of the examples I have is of a writers group. And Hunter, I don't know if you've ever been part of a writers group who have friends who are, but no matter what, they create another 10 pages every other week, because they've got to show up Saturday morning with their writers group and they've got to have new pages. So sometimes those accountability partners can be free. If you can find a group of people, a networking group, where you each check in with each other. Sometimes they are paid services like career coaches. And that's what some of us do, is that we get together with people and help them move forward and help them get out of their own way, and try and identify where some of those obstacles are, because it is a tough process. And like you were talking about, sometimes we criticize ourselves and then we let ourselves go downward and then we don't move forward. And the best example I have of the value of a coach is someone like Serena Williams, one of the greatest athletes of all time, has okay, she had someone that she pays, or paid, now that she's somewhat retired in that field, to look at her, to see what he sees that she just physically can't see when she's out on the court. And so that's what things like coaches and workshops, and that's what something that we're sort of toying with too, is how can we provide some workshops for people to sort of check in on a more regular basis. So you've got to figure out how you can hold yourself accountable. And if you are not the person that can do it on your own every Tuesday, Thursday, what are the outside resources that you can bring in to hold yourself accountable and to make that progress? Because one of the things that gets really tough is if you're in the middle. Like if you have a miserable job, you are out there, you are looking for a job, right? And if you're happy, good for you. Hopefully you're doing things internally to continue that success and, pay it forward to others. But if you're in this mediocre space where there's no urgency to leave, be like, oh, what's that, Office Space? One of those movies that we talk about, right? That you're there all of a sudden 5 or 10 years later, and you're like, shoot, I've been thinking of leaving for 5 years. What happened? So sometimes you do need to give yourself a kick in the pants. And sometimes that's why we go to outside resources to find that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so many good things in there. Yes, I know people in writers groups, and they're so helpful. Like he's setting up this accountability, right? Like even if it's again, and that's closely linked to, and this can be a writers group, this could be your job search, right? It's closely linked to if there isn't this accountability, it can easily this worry of like, oh well, it's not going to be that good anyway. So like, what's the point, of like writing it? It's like, no, it doesn't matter. You just need to get that negativity out, get it over there on this side and put it out there with other people because, we're all capable of way more than we give ourselves credit for, and it's from other people that we sometimes get that realization. It's like, oh, I did a lot of work and I'm pretty good at this and this could be a good fit.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why a place like Weight Watchers succeeds because people show up once a week for that support, for that accountability. So you've got to find what work groups or the people that can, again, sort of provide in the middle, a little bit of critiquing, not overly critiqued that you don't feel good about showing up again the next week, but that challenge you a little bit too.
Yeah, totally. We're getting a comment in from Mary that said, I'm starting to understand that we need personal teams, people who are not primary friends for all aspects of life. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I have a couple of friends. No, I was going to say that there are a couple of us, in your industry, you have work friends, right? You have your personal friends, maybe parents of kids in your circle, but then you also have other work friends. And so I have a couple of women in my life who happen to be career coaches, career counselors, and we get together for walks or coffee and we talk work. And it's invigorating because we get ideas. We don't really compete because we are different people, but it's a nice support group to have for people who understand.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the challenge too, is you've got to find a support group of people who understand. And that's why I see a lot of groups for women in tech, whether it's a particular field or maybe it's how you take into consideration too. And that's why, I will give the love to Power to Fly because they go out of the way to provide some of these resources for people who have not always been at the forefront of leadership within the company. And so find those links too.
Yeah.
And I got a sign that my internet was not working. Am I okay? Are you hearing me?
It's a little choppy, but we're still getting you. We're getting everything, but just sometimes it just does that thing where it stops and then it goes a little fast and then you're back to normal.
So I will talk slowly.
It works when it speeds up, I guess. I love too when we're talking about, I can identify with the getting people that are outside of your close friends and family because as a performer, like, and this I think can translate to other people's work, like showing it to my mom, like my new headshot or a scene or something, she has a point of view about me that maybe is like, for me, luckily she's my biggest fan, I can do no wrong, but like she has a personal bias and that could be good, it could be harmful depending on your relationship with that person, but they're bringing a version of you that maybe doesn't fit the work that you're trying to get assessed,
Yeah.
and getting those people that do get, like you were saying, get you, like get your work and what you're about is different than like what you were like when you were 6 and that was your favorite thing to do,
Yeah. And that can also apply to the work friends that you have. The person who knew you when you were right out of college may not be the best resource versus someone who knew you when you were 20 years into the workforce. Or, we've all had jobs where it just wasn't a good fit. And if it's not a good fit, you start to slide, you're not your best self. So recognize that and really make sure that you're connecting with people who have a more current version of your work life, your work style, and how you contribute today.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got a little less than 10 minutes left. We got a few more audience questions that are coming in. T asked, should we use our current job to access our future jobs regarding the pros and cons? And I just want to clarify, is it access or assess, T? So you let me know, because I feel like that could go two different ways with this question.
Yeah, let's see. I'm checking out the chat. First of all, I will say you can always use your current job to reflect on what's working or what's not working. That is where you start, right? And if you are working for a big enough company where there's opportunity, then you always can be sort of benchmarking out, well, in 5 years, maybe I can work in this division. Maybe 2 years from now, I get a promotion. So if that's part of the question, definitely starting where you are is always almost the easier place, by the way. And in today's labor market, if you can work with your employer on revamping your job so that it's more fulfilling for you, they will do that because they see now. And I don't know, I know of a woman who just the other day, struggling with an employee, and the employee was struggling. And, the best advice that we could give her is, what, you had so few resumes for that job. You had very little candidates. You are better off trying to make it work with your current new employee than posting it again, having no one in that job for 3 to 6 months, maybe not finding anyone at all. So a lot of employers are investing in the current people they have. So anything within the current company or job should be the first place to start.
Love that. And it looks like that answered the question for you, T. They say thanks so much to me.
Oh, good.
Great. And if there's any follow-up questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. We have just a couple minutes left. Can you maybe, we have a question that I think it might be helpful before we log off here. Can you talk about some of maybe the common mistakes when approaching job searches, and to flip it, maybe some things that you would recommend as an alternative?
Oh, gosh. Well, the mistakes depend upon where you are seeing the lack of results. So if you're not getting called in, what's wrong with your resume, or are you applying to the wrong jobs, right? If you are having first round interviews, but you're not getting called back for second, or you're not getting offers, what is it about the interview process where you're not able to get yourself to the next place? I will say one thing that I do try and ask people to do is to really streamline. And I know that's counterintuitive for a lot of people. They think more is more. If I apply to 100 places, one of them is bound to call me. But you know what? That could backfire, because then you feel dejected, and then your whole process can spiral down from there. So we actually recommend that people super focus, and that's where the skills, interest, and markets come in. If you have done that process, you will then start to see the jobs that are ideal for you, the companies that are ideal for you. So I would look at some of those things first. And the other thing when it comes to resumes, also less is more, nice and clean, not a lot of colors and fancy pictures or charts or anything that could distract. Simple is better when it comes to resumes.
Yeah, absolutely. And resumes is a hot topic question, I feel like, because some people are like, definitely have a cover letter, and other people are like, I never read the cover letter, and
the great cover letter debate of 2022. I mean, it was on fire that people. And you know what I say about a cover letter, by the way? What does it hurt? What does it hurt to show them how interested you are in them, and to show them, make it easy on them, for them to see how, oh, I see how Hunter can be helpful here. I mean, that's one thing you want to do. You want to make it so simple for the recruiter and the hiring manager to see how you can be a fit there. So those are some things that I think about. And the other thing that I will say real quickly is have your references ready before you know it, because I had a friend last year. We did a whole episode about having your references ready and who those should be. And he wasn't ready. And sure enough, they called on one of his references, and that person didn't really give him a great review because he was in a sales position, and they had let him go because he wasn't hitting his marks. So he didn't have the right people lined up to be proactive in providing those references.
That's a very good piece of advice, to like really have because things move so quick. It's kind of like there's the old phrase, hurry up and wait, right?
Yeah,
Because
and that's what it
yeah,
is. That's true. But you've got to be ready for every single piece of the puzzle because you never know. Again, I know someone who went in on a Monday morning for an interview. She interviewed with two people. She got a phone call at 5 o'clock, and
yeah,
she got the offer. So was she ready for that? And in this case, the answer was yes.
yeah, exactly. You got to hurry up, get everything ready, and then, maybe you wait an hour or maybe you wait a week and then it's like, oh, I forgot I applied to that one. Oh, they're calling me now. But you want all that stuff already taken care of. So it's like, I think it goes in the spirit too of self-care, right? Because then there isn't this like scrambling mentality, which is just so disorienting.
Yeah. You want to be ready. You want to be prepared. You want to give yourself the time. I actually had to call in sick once to an interview because I was just getting over a terrible cold. This was years ago, but I was like, no, I am not. I just couldn't do it. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah, there you go. It's again, we got to take care of ourselves before we can, go out there, right?
Yeah.
So, Diana, this has been so fantastic. Unfortunately, we could talk for another hour, and unfortunately, we will not be today. But is there anything that you would like to impart, some final words of wisdom, how folks can stay connected with you as well?
Yeah, I just typed in the website, jobtalkweekly.com. We have a variety of ways for people to get support. We have the podcast, which is free, that people can listen to every Wednesday or go back and listen to some old episodes. We do have a new workshop on October 1st, a Saturday, I may have mentioned, where you'll get, again, the personalized attention. You'll get some momentum, which is especially important right now before the holidays kick in. It might be a nice time to really get everything ready for yourself, and you get a free resume critique with the workshop. So that's October 1st, virtual, and you can find all that information at jobtalkweekly.com. But we really love hearing from people. We want to know, what are the topics? What are the issues that you're seeing? So go ahead and shoot us an email or just rate and review on the podcast. And that's another place where we mine for ideas for what people want to hear.
Oh, that is so fantastic. And before we sign off, Mary said, on the topic of cover letters, think of it like bonus marks in school. You're not going to get any things taken off unless it's like 20 pages. Don't do that. Just one little page and like show your interest. It's bonus marks. I love that, Mary.
Yeah. And Mary, you can message me later for a conversation about gaps on the cover letter or resume, because that's fine. Just send me a message, find me on LinkedIn, and we can message and talk about that. I'm happy to.
And what name shall they search on LinkedIn? How can they find you, Diana?
They can find me under Diana O'Leary. They can find me under Job Talk Weekly, both.
Okay, awesome. Well, round of applause to Diana. Thank you so much for making the time today. And I also want to thank everyone that signed on and participated. You are being proactive. You are practicing self-care. You are pursuing your goals just by showing up today, because showing up, you are being accountable to yourself and to your career. So good on you. Put that on your personal brag sheet today, in your brag bag, perhaps we can call it, because you did something awesome for yourself today and your career health, as I am going to refer to it from now on.
Thank you, Hunter. This was great. This was great experience. And I do appreciate all these questions because it is helpful to see what people are going through right now. That way I can be more helpful. So I do appreciate everyone signing on for an hour today.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much, Diana. This has been so great for me as well. I'm going to go implement this stuff today.
That's right. Okay, team.
Take care, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.